In this lesson, we're going to look at Sample in a Jar by Fish. There's a lot to cover. We've got the intro part, which is a whole thing on its own, got all the chords, and then we've got a pretty complex soloing approach. So let's start with the intro part. This is what it sounds like. To start out, a lot of this is based on triads. So for the beginner players that are watching this, check out the lesson titled Triads from the Cage Shapes in the course. That'll help you understand the basics behind this intro part. For everyone else, we're starting on an A major triad because it's an A major chord to start. So we got an A major to a C major, coming from this E-shaped chord, down to a G major, right? This comes from the from the C-shaped chord. So. Now this fourth chord is a D major, but instead of just playing a D major as is, Trey does this little double stop thing. So he's playing off this A-shaped chord, and he's playing this triad that sort of sits in this G-shaped scale area. So he's hammering on from the 7th to the 9th fret of the A string, playing the 7th fret on the D and the G string simultaneously, and then going back to that 9th fret of the A string. And now it's right to an A major chord. You can choose a triad if you want, but it's kind of hard to switch in time up to a different triad. But you got an A major chord to an E major, E minor, and to a D major. D major's on 2 beats, and then you repeat it. I went through that quickly with the assumption that you will check out the tabs that I've made for that in the lesson materials. Those are going to be very helpful for understanding how all of this works in a cohesive piece and part, but also allow you to slow it down and work on it without having to go at full speed the whole time. So check that out. That is the intro part in its entirety. The good news is that over the verse, you can play that intro part because the verse chords are the exact same as the intro chords. It's an A to a C to a G to a D. Then the second line is an A to an E to an E minor to a D. Same exact thing. Now, relatively speaking, the chorus is very simple. All you're doing is playing an A to a D to an E back to a D. So now that we've talked about the verse and chorus chords, I'm just going to give you a rundown of the form. You have the intro, then you have the first verse, chorus, then you have a little break where they're just playing the verse chords, so nothing new there. And then it's a verse again, a chorus again, and then you go to this bridge, which is very, very quick, and there's a little bit of a difference in the chord changes, but then that's the only other unique part. So that bridge part sounds like this. You got a C major to a D major, A major, G major, C major, D major, E major, and that's it. Then from the bridge, you're going to a chorus, which again is that A, D, E, D thing, but instead of doing it 4 times, you're doing it 8 times, so it's kind of like a double chorus. Then you go into the soloing section. The soloing is very interesting in this song because there is not one central key that you should be playing in. All of these chords, the A, C, G, D, E, E minor, they don't fit into one chord progression. So what this means is that in your soloing, you kind of have to adapt to that. For the intermediate players, your approach is going to be quite a bit more complex. I'm going to ask that you find, as always, one triad per chord in the progression and use that as your framework for soloing. I'm going to change this up a little bit, and we're not going to do the G-shaped scale, but I'm going to think about A major, because that's where a bulk of these chords are. And I'm going to set up in the C-shaped scale. Now I'm going to go one chord at a time and just talk through the triads that I see in this general area. A major, C major, or you can play C major right here. Now you got a G major, right here. D major, right here. A major, E major, E minor, D. These chord changes are very fast in the progression. So what I want you to do when you're working on this is just focus at first on hitting one note per triad. Don't even worry about playing the major scale outside of this. Just one note per triad and see how that goes. That might even sound like this. Right? It could be that basic. It's just helping you identify these shapes and follow them with the chord progression with the hope of later on being comfortable enough where you can actually add in. Right? A few more notes like that. So use the backing track to help you. That's there for you in the lesson materials. My solo is going to range this sort of like C-shaped and then D-shaped and then A-shaped scale. So this whole general area of the neck. But know that this is what I'm thinking about. It's just the triads, A major scale to add some content to the solo, but I'm really focusing on the triads. This is what that would sound like. Everything that I reference in the lesson, you can find in the lesson materials below this video, and I'll see you in the next one.